Welcome to Real Life with Jenny. My name's Jenny Senaparatna. Grab your favorite drink, get yourself a snack, and we will get started. Today, I have Irish breakfast. It's one of my faves. I don't drink it very often because it's not as strong as English breakfast, but that's okay. And a Twinkie. I know. So here's the thing, this is like $1.50 for just two of them, but like $3.50 for a whole box. But if I buy a whole box, I eat a whole box. So here we are, and these are normally fresher. So let's get real. I want to talk a little bit about some things that I walked through as a child and what it has done as an adult. How about that, right? Like, here we are. So when I was in fifth grade, my fifth grade teacher was like, something's off with Jenny. I went from like doing really well in classes to really struggling. And I hated school. I mean, granted, there was a lot of things happening at home too, but my teacher was like, there's something wrong. So in sixth grade, they took me to this like white room, and my parents I went in and I took a test, which I found out later was like an IQ test, because they were like, oh, maybe she's not smart, which is what I'd been told most of my life, by the way. So I took an IQ test, and they did some other like weird, like, what do you think this is? Like the blobs. Hey, what does this tell you emotionally? Those kind of tests that I didn't understand. I was in sixth grade. And they diagnosed me with dyslexia. And I was like, I don't care. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't matter to me. It doesn't change my life. I knew I couldn't read. Like, I was very aware that I wasn't reading. I could have told you that back in first grade if anybody had asked me. I knew I couldn't read the words. Like, that made sense to me. So they put me in this thing for my eyes. I had to do like this whole how to focus my eyes appropriately. I guess because I wasn't doing it, and you had to like move from one to the other, like in the doctor's office where they're like, is this better or is this better? Is this better or is this better? I had to do all this eye therapy. And I will never forget. I'm doing this eye therapy. I don't know. It felt like for an eternity. It might have been like 2 or 3 times. I could ask my mom. I didn't before I did this. But I remember doing this eye therapy, and you like had to do this and like all these, put things over your eyes, and I had to work at home. I never did. But I was in 6th grade. I was an unmotivated child. What do you want from me? And so I'm, doing this therapy, eye therapy, and we're driving up to northern Minnesota to see my grandparents. Now, I have made this drive all of my life. Both sets of my grandparents and all of my aunts and uncles, except for like one, lived up in that area. So we were there a lot. I'd taken this drive a million times. And I remember we turned a corner one day, and I was up and I looked out and I saw trees for the first time while we were driving. I know that sounds really stupid, but they were all a blur before. My eyes didn't know how to focus on one thing when we were going in a car. And all of a sudden I looked out and I saw trees. And I remember going, they're trees. And my dad was like, yeah. Like, I remember him thinking, come on, moron. Like, I don't think that's really what he thought, but maybe he did. But like, yeah, there's trees. We all see the trees. They've been there for like decades, Jen, like, really? But I had never seen them except when we stopped. I thought when you drove, it was just a blur because we were going so fast. No, it was a blur because I couldn't visualize what was going on. I had learned how to use focus my eyes in a new way. And it just blew my mind. It just was so overwhelming. And so then I got into, at my school, we didn't have special education. I went to a private school. They didn't know how to deal with dyslexia in any way, shape, or form. In fact, I think like one of my teachers to deal with dyslexia gave me a different spelling list that was actually harder than everybody else's, which I don't really understand, but that worked for them. So, I mean, I didn't really have a lot. But what I had to do is I went once or twice a week, and I went into this room, and all I remember from this class is that there was a giant 8 that I had to draw, like a giant 8, like this. And it was about, I don't know, 2 to 3 feet tall. You can't see that, but 2 to 3 feet tall. And I'd draw this 8 and I'd go which way I'm going, right, left, right, left. And as I was doing it, they would throw out math equations. And at first it was like 4 plus 4, 8, right, left, right. I haven't done it in years, right? And I'd still have to do I'd still have to do which way I was going, and I'd solve the math problems. And then eventually they were like the square root of 32, and you were like, what? And you couldn't stop and like do the math. You had to do it all in your head. And you also did it this way. So you'd go left, right, left, 32 times 4, left, right, and then you'd figure it out. And it was incredible how much knowledge I had locked away in my head, because I got to the point that I could solve equations like x plus 2 minus 3 times 4. What is that? I don't even know what I said at this point because I'm not a math girl. But when I was doing this, my brain could do that. And it was incredible what was unlocked as I went through how to deal with dyslexia. Now, I was a girl that, because they found out so much later in life, normally they catch it earlier now, but I was 6th, 7th grade. I had memorized every word that I knew. And so I'm even to this day, if it's a word that I've never actually seen, I don't have a concept of how to spell it, because if I haven't seen it and memorized it, and I can memorize it very quickly, but it unlocks something. This whole thing unlocked a lot of things in my life. And I just thought, I was thinking the other day about my dyslexia and all the therapy that I went through with that. And I did that 7th through 12th grade. Left, right, left, right, left, right. I did that 7th through 12th grade, and I never felt smarter than when I was in that room, because I knew that I understood what was, I knew that my brain was bigger and smarter than what was in a textbook at that moment. But no one else saw that except for my teacher in that room. No one else saw what intelligence I had. They just saw my bookwork and were like, this girl can't spell, this girl can't read, she's super unmotivated. Like, it is a mess, right? It is a mess for her. And I realized that the other day, I'm thinking through this, and I thought, the forest for the trees. Sometimes we are in a situation that we don't see the trees, right? All we see is the mass forest of blurred trees. That's all we see, is just the overwhelmness of a forest. Have you ever stood in a forest before and gone, I am so small? I've been out to the redwoods in California years ago. Like it was 20 some years ago. I was out there and I just remember going, I am so small. I'm so small. This forest is so big and overwhelming. But when you looked at one tree at a time, it was still overwhelming, but it wasn't as big, right? And so I just really felt like sometimes in life, everything feels overwhelming and big. And you may be that little girl who's sitting in a car and she actually never sees the trees that you're passing by because it's just a blur. You haven't learned how to focus your eyes enough to be able to see that one thing. And I feel like that a lot of times in my Christian life, that I am missing the point sometimes, because I sometimes look at the overarching story of Jesus, right? Like if I take the story of Jesus and I look at the overarching story of Jesus, he was born, he found disciples, he died, he was resurrected, I'm now saved. Like that's the overarching part. But when I focus in and I take a moment to learn about him in more detail. And I see his love for women, his love for the outcast, his love for those who are hurting, his love and for these men that were not necessarily people other people would have chosen. When I look at the real life of Jesus and I think about his stories that talks about finding the lost coin, right? I know I've talked about that coin, but finding the lost coin and looking, setting everything aside till you can find the coin. And how the shepherd left the 99 to find the one, and that is Jesus's heart. And when you look at the overarching, it's pretty amazing. Like you're like, wow, that's awesome. But when you zoom in and you see the love of Jesus in a new way, it is incredible. And I just encourage you, as you're walking through this life and you're learning new skills, first of all, I super encourage you to be learning new skills. But as we're learning, that we don't lose sight of who Jesus is as an individual. Yes, he's God, but his compassion and love was something that was unmatched and has been unmatched. No one in the world has ever loved like Jesus loved. There have been other people that have come close. My grandmother, pretty close, right? But I just encourage you that, first of all, if you're one of those people that everything's unfocused and you just are like, I don't even know what's going on, there's so much happening, it is overwhelming, that first of all, God can help you focus. There are things that can bring that one tree back into focus. There are things you can do. And I just pray that for you. I pray that God's peace comes and settles into your life as everything is just whizzing by so quickly, right? Everything is just whizzing by really quickly. I just pray God's peace into your life that you can stop and enjoy one tree. But mostly, I pray that you see God in a new way this week. That you go into the Bible and you find one thing about Jesus that you've never seen before. That you're like, he really loved the sick. When he healed the lady with the issue of blood, it was a love moment. It was a moment of, I see you in your pain and I'm going to fix it. And I love that about Jesus, that he is not like, ew, that's disgusting, go away. Come back when you're fixed up. Because that's quite often what we think, especially even as Christians. We're like, well, when we have everything together, then I'll come back and I'll talk to God about it. And that's not the Jesus that I see in the Bible. When you look at him and you read the Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, when you read that, that's not the Jesus that I know. The Jesus that I know is willing to eat with sinners, to be with the lepers, to be with the women that are outcast. He is willing to be with them and heal them and change their lives forever. And he can do the same for you. He can do the same for you. Well, that's all I have for this week. I hope that you can see what I'm talking about. It's kind of an odd, Jenny's dyslexic to Jesus is alive and he loves you kind of moment, but you can find me on Real Life with Jenny on Instagram and on Facebook. Also here on YouTube, but you're already here, you're fine. But like and subscribe if you would, that would be amazing. You can also find me at my website. That's in the comments. You can support it in the comments, all that stuff. Honestly, I just encourage you to see the trees in the midst of the craziness in our world. That God will bring you peace and that you understand that you don't need to have everything together for Jesus to come and be with you and change your life forever. That he wants to spend time with you. No matter how messy your life looks, he wants to be with you. So all you have to do is just say, God, I'm here. This is my life and I'm a mess. Help me. And he will meet you there. You all have a great week.